Hello, my treasures. It's time for the rest of the cards of Audiopocalypse, the mini set for Festival of Legends. So let's begin with the first card revealed, which is Costume Singer, a 1 cost 2 attack 1 HP minion for Mage and Hunter. That at the end of your turn, you draw a secret. So there are currently 3 classes in standard Hearthstone that have secrets, Rogue being the one that is the best out of the 3. This is being printed for the 2 classes that aren't Rogue. Mage was actually pretty close in playability compared to Hunter, at least when it comes to secrets. But in the long run, I don't know how playable this card is going to be. It's a great turn 1 play for a secret deck, which is something that Secret Mage was really missing. Sadly, secrets over the course of Hearthstone's history haven't really gotten more powerful than they originally were. And because of this, decks can withstand you playing a bunch of secrets much easier than they used to be able to, which is the reason why a lot of these secret decks don't currently work. Basically what I'm saying, this is a great card if we see additional secret support. If we don't, then this card might not be played. Now for the next card, which is going to be Star Power, a 5 cost arcane spell for Mage and Hunter. That does 5 damage to a random enemy minion, and then you repeat it with 1 less damage. So this is very, very similar to Shell Shock, which already exists in Hunter, except it costs 2 more, and you essentially get to hit 2 more additional minions. I love cards like this because spell damage on these cards actually make the card ramp up really, really quickly and be even better removal tools. And given the fact that it is an arcane spell, and we have a lot of ways to gain additional arcane spell power within Hunter, it also does shift the playstyle of Arcane Hunter using some of their early game arcane spells to remove things off of the board to just allowing you to OTK your opponent by hitting their face, which is actually something that the deck really, really needed. It needed some type of additional removal or just a really big finisher, which it sadly hasn't gotten still. Maybe in a follow-up set, we'll see something that is a big finisher for the deck. And now for the next Mage card, which is going to be Remix Dispense Obot, which is a 4 cost mech with 4 attack, 4 HP that gains an additional effect while in your hand per turn. First effect is going to cast 2 random Mage secrets. The next one is going to give you 2 coins. Another one will give you 2 mechs, and the third one will give you 2 random frost spells. The nice thing about this card is it's actually quite flexible in what decks you can fit it in, because a lot of these effects can easily be abused in any type of Mage deck. 2 additional mechs is probably the worst option out of the 4 for a generic Mage deck. Now the next card is for Shaman and Warrior. It is Backstage Bouncer, a 4 cost 4 attack 5 HP beast with Taunt, Battlecry, transform a friendly minion into a copy of this. I don't know where this fits in Shaman. However, in Warrior, I could see maybe a Menagerie Taunt Warrior deck really wanting a card like this. Though you do already have a lot of really good 4 costs, might not actually want to cut because they have more powerful effects. Lava Gorger is the first thing that comes to mind, where it is both an elemental and a beast, but this does give you another tribal tag depending on how many tribes that you want to run within your Menagerie deck. The other plus side about this card is it turns a lot of early game minions into a big late game minion if you can get any type of buffs, and we have both Lothamar and Black Rock and Roll in order to buff this card up by quite a bit, and thus getting a lot of advantage out of both of those cards. Now for the next Shaman and Warrior card, Jam Session, which is a 2 cost fire spell that gives a friendly minion +3/+3, deal 1 damage to all other minions, overload 1. I don't see a place for this in Shaman again. I don't understand why they decided to print 2 cards that are dual class for Shaman, that it just doesn't fit at all. This is great for Enraged Warrior, and that's probably where this is going to see a lot of play, because it does give you an AoE that does a bunch of damage while buffing up 1 key minion, and thus allowing you to buff up all your minions that you damage with your weapon that is incredibly powerful as is. It's another really good fire spell for that deck, and it was kind of hurting on really good fire spells to run. It also acts as an additional way to revive Thor Balorn, which is always decent within that deck in my opinion, and this one will probably see a lot of play in Warrior. However, again, I don't know what Shaman would actually want to run this in the long run. And now for the final Shaman card, which is Remixed Totem Carver, which is a 3 cost 3 attack 2 HP Minion for Shaman that gains a additional effect in your hand that changes each turn. And then these are the 4 effects where it either gives you a Flame Tongue Totem, a Stereo Totem, Manatide Totem, or Jukebox Totem, which was the new card revealed for Paladin and Shaman. So you might be confused, why is Manatide Totem here? Well, Blizzard did state that this card was so far in testing when they decided to remove Manatide Totem from the core set for Shaman that they just ended up sticking with it. Now, if you've been playing Hearthstone for a long period of time, you'll know this is a reference to a Grand Tournament card that used to be able to give you a random totem that didn't have to be a basic totem. It got nerfed because it kept giving you a 3/4, which was quite insane for a, I think it was 2-cost minion. Generally speaking, though, from this mini set, this is honestly one of the better cards that Shaman is actually getting access to. And that is kind of depressing to say because 2 out of the 5 cards are just probably unplayable in the class. All right, now time for the next combo, which is Rogue and Priest. The first card going to be Deafen, a 1-cost shadow spell that silences a minion, and if you combo it out, also deal 2 damage to it. I don't know where this fits. The problem is a silence isn't really that impactful when you already have Shard of the Naru in standard rotation under Priest. Thus, this leaves this to Rogue. However, if you really want the combo to do the additional damage to whatever minion you're targeting, you need to spend some additional mana. And because Rogue has a lot of really good 2-cost spells that do 3 damage, I don't think this would replace any of those. If you're really hurting for additional combo cards within a deck, then sure, maybe this card could in theory see some play in a combo Rogue deck. But in the long run, I don't even think it sees play there. It actually just makes that archetype worse because you have a higher chance of getting something that is just going to be completely dead off of your random generation cards. All right, and now for the next one, which is going to be Plagiarizer, a 3-cost 4 attack, 3 HP pirate. Battlecry, get a copy of the top card of your opponent's deck. This is a cool card. It fits both Thief Priest and Thief Rogue. I'm actually kind of shocked. I didn't really think of the combination of Rogue and Priest when it came to dual class cards because both classes do have the Thief archetype. Now, I would say the thing that makes this card really strong is the fact that it gives you insider knowledge of what your opponent is going to top deck. That allows you to play around whatever card your opponent is going to top deck without straight out stealing the card, thus making it a really annoying card to deal with, especially for just a rare card. The only way you can straight out steal whatever card that your opponent is about to top deck is if you also combo this with Harvester of Envy, but that also depends on what card you ended up copying. It's a really fun card. It should see some type of competitive play in either Rogue or Priest, and honestly, I can't wait to try it out. Now for the next card, which is going to be One Hit Wonder, a 2-cost to attack 1 HP undead that has Rush and combo, Game Poisonous. There are just better removal tools in Rogue. I don't see where this sees play. All right, since we talked about the first Rogue combination, let's talk about the second one, which is Demon Hunter and Rogue. The first card for this combination is going to be Tough Crowd, a 3-cost to attack 1 HP demon. With the outcast, return a minion to its owner's hand. Either this is going to be a Shadow Step that you're just going to use on your own minions, or it's going to be a Sap, which is actually a pretty cool idea to have returned to standard Hearthstone. Now, this does require it to be the left or rightmost card in your hand, which isn't always going to be the most easy thing in the world to do in Rogue in particular. However, in Demon Hunter, a card like this could be something that would allow you to remove a big taunt minion from your opponent's board so you can just well into your opponent's face with your hero and all your other minions, and thus seeing a lot of play there. You're also going to probably randomly discover this through some other card effects, where getting this wouldn't always be the worst case scenario in Demon Hunter. Now for the next card, which is going to be a legendary Rhythmdancer Risa, a 5-cost 3-attack 5 HP minion with Rush. After your hero attacks, return this card to your hand. Set its cost to 1. So I get what they're going for, but given the fact this is both a Rogue and Demon Hunter card, it really does suck that only one class can really abuse this card. Multi-strike is the only way for a class to multiple attack additional minions. thus allowing you to bounce this back multiple times on the same turn. While it isn't as easily abusable in Rogue, it does have a nice stat line to use as a removal tool once you do get it bounced back once. Classes, I just really expect this one to see more play in Demon Hunter than Rogue, as Demon Hunter can really abuse this with multi-strike. Alright, for the next Demon Hunter card, which is going to be Remix Rapacy, which is a 5-cost spell that deals 3 damage to all minions and gains an additional effect in your hand that changes each turn. These are the 4 effects. The first one is going to be drawing 3 additional cards. One will give you 5 additional attack for the turn. One will do 3 damage twice, and the final one will summon a 5/5 demon. This is very comparable to Harmonic Pop, except it has 4 abilities that it's rotating between instead of just 2, and most of these abilities are incredibly strong. The fact that you have some type of really good board clear now in Demon Hunter is actually quite impressive, because that is something that the deck has historically been missing, or I should say at least a late game card. You had things like Topple the Idol or Chaos Nova that you could have previously used, but this card just generally is better than both of those cards, as it doesn't rely on some other type of condition to be fulfilled in order to be able to get the most out of this card. Now for the next card, which is going to be Priest. The first one is going to be Ambient Lightspawn, a 4-cost 3 attack 4 HP elemental with Finale and Overheal. Give another random friendly minion +2/+2. In Priest, this is going to be incredibly fun to play around with. I don't know if this is the payoff that Overheal Priest really needed, but it could make a Overheal aggro-based deck come into fruition, because the deck already had a bunch of draw power and a lot of really good minions that allowed you to swarm the board, and this just makes those minions a little bit harder to actually deal with. The only thing the deck really is missing is some type of AoE heal outside of their location, but given one of the later cards, that is going to be solved a little bit. The next card is going to be Fanboy, a 2-cost 2 attack 2 HP Priest Druid card, which is our first combination. With the keyword choose one, give a friendly minion a +2 attack and rush, or +2 HP and lifesteal. So for this card, I think it depends on which class you're going to be using it in, which one you're actually going to choose. Lifesteal actually allows you to turn any overheal minion into something that could just overheal itself, which is incredibly interesting. Here we don't have something like Bless anymore to swap the attack and HP of any given minion, but I do think this card will probably see a lot of play in some type of overheal Priest deck. In Druid, I don't know where it actually fits. Sure, you could fit it in an aggro-based deck, but I think there are just way better cards. Now, for the last Priest and Druid card, Funnel Cake. Heh. This card got leaked out early, and now we're just seeing it. It's a 1-cost spell that restores 3 health to a minion and its neighbors. For each one overhealed, refresh a mana crystal. Supposedly, this card used to be a higher cost card that healed everything on the board, which was absolutely broken, and honestly probably what Overheal Priest needed to be really good. But given the fact that it also refreshes mana crystals on whatever is overhealed, is probably why they ended up nerfing it. The best thing about this card is it's going to enable some really wacky combos up to 14 mana, but the downside is it is going to be a card that a lot of people are going to complain about, because refreshing mana crystals is always annoying to deal with. So let's get on to the remaining Druid cards. The first one is going to be Popular Pixie, a 2-cost 2 attack 3 HP minion with choose one, refresh your hero power, or your next one costs 0. Refreshing your hero power is actually quite interesting, given how much attack gain and armor gain you can actually get within a Druid right now. It will make the unending swarms that you actually use in a hero power Druid deck a little less consistent on reviving your minions that increase your attack or your armor gain from the hero power. But I do think this card is probably decent enough to see some type of play in that deck. I think some variants of the deck were already running Tour Guide, which is basically a 1-cost version of this card, though this will allow you to gain a lot of armor and thus make Zog even better on any given turn. Alright, let's get into the next shocking combo of Druid and Warlock. The first card for this combination is going to be a 5-cost 2 attack 2 HP Blood Treant that costs health instead of mana. This is the first collectible card that costs health instead of mana, which is actually pretty cool. The other thing cool about this card, and the fact that this is one of the dual types, is the fact that Druid and Warlock tend to be on the opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to thematic point of views, where you have a lot of dark elements in Warlock and a lot of more nature-based elements in Druid. Warlock has a lot of cards that allow you to prevent yourself from taking a bunch of face damage on your own given turn. The Druid side of the coin has a lot of armor gain, which does basically the exact same thing. I don't know, even though this is the first card of its type, this one will see a lot of play just because of how high cost of the card it is, and the fact that it only has 2 attack and 2 HP. You much rather use something like Flame Imp in Warlock or some other minion in a Druid. It just doesn't really have a home in Druid in my opinion, and that's probably why it won't see play. However, the next card does seem way more interesting. Doomkin, a 6 cost 3 attack 4 HP minion for Druid and Warlock. That battle cry, take one of your opponent's empty mana crystals. So this kind of does punish your opponent if you're playing some type of elite Tauren champion deck where you're trying to force your opponent to always spend all of their mana, and it does fit perfectly on your own curve for this card to be comboed with that card. It's a really cool design space. It's going to be incredibly frustrating to play against if it's really good, but given its stat line, I don't know how many Warlock decks or Druid decks are going to want to run this in the long run outside of big memes. Though I still really want to play around with this card because it does seem like a card that's going to be fun for replays and for video content. Now, since we just talked about the Druid Warlock cards, let's talk about the Warlock cards by themselves. Fanottem, Lord of the Opera, is a 30 cost, 15/15 minion for Warlock that has Taunt Lifesteal, and the text this card cost is equal to the amount of cards in your deck. Holy shit, this is the biggest minion that we've ever seen printed that is actually collectible. There's a few synergies that you could use this in combination with. Rin comes to mind, where you're self-milling yourself and your opponent, thus allowing you to get this discounted really quickly. The less meme one is going to be the Jailer, where you just burn your entire deck and then you can slam this down for free. The problem with a card like this in particular, though, is the fact that it has no tag on it. Supposedly, Blizzard did try to have a demon tag on it, and that was incredibly broken because of a previous card they printed in, can't remember if it was Festival of Legends or March of the Lich King, but being able to summon a 15/15 for 6 mana would have been incredibly broken, so they didn't go with that. And Undead tag probably wasn't included either, given the fact that we do have the slime that allows you to cheat out any undead in your hand. If you find additional ways to get additional copies, such as Fizzle and Zola, where you're just looping it back and forth, then in theory you could maybe play a huge amount of these cards and it could be incredibly fun. But in the long run, outside of memes, I don't know how playable this card is going to be. It's a really cool card, a really cool design space that we haven't seen before in Hearthstone, and I can't wait to theorycraft something to make the most out of it. Now for the last Warlock combination, which is Warlock and Mage. Fiddle Fire Imp is the first card, which is a 3 cost 3 attack 2 HP demon that has the battle cry, add a random Fire Mage and Fire Warlock spell to your hand. In Warlock, there's only 3 fire spells, though all 3 of those are not really cards that you want to randomly generate unless you're playing some type of Fatigue Warlock deck, which, because this is another imp, does actually fit pretty well in that style of deck. Because Hellfire is a 33% odds, that might make it actually worth it, and it does allow you to generate a Fire Mage spell, which for the most part are all really good direct damaging spells to your opponent's face. I do see this maybe seeing some play in Warlock. However, in Mage, the only combination I could maybe see this being used in is a DJ Mana Storm list, where you're trying to get as many Pyroblasts as humanly possible. Overall, I just don't see Mage running this. Now for the final card of the mini set, which is Reverbs, a 3 cost shadow spell that summons a copy of a minion. Each one dies after taking damage. So you can either use this as removal or as a way to get some very powerful death rattles on your board. It could in theory make Mill Warlock come back from the dead, though I do think this card will probably be more used in something like Heritage Mage, where you're trying to get additional copies of Agwyn or whatever you put Agwyn's death rattle on, because then you can easily just keep stacking them over and over again, and thus allowing you to do a bunch of damage, which is always a fun deck to try out and been and historically has been a deck that I always try out at least once a set. I just hope this will be enough to push it forward all the way. Generally what I'm saying, this card has some homes and has some potential. We just need maybe a little bit more support for each of the given decks as I mentioned. Now, those were all the cards for Festival of Legends mini set Audiopocalypse. Let me know what decks that you're most looking forward to be using. I think the things that I'm most looking forward are from the first half of the cards, which is Mill, EK, and Weapon Paladin. But outside of that, there are still some really fun options that I could maybe try out, such as Heritage Mage, or even something using the huge Warlock Legendary. Like always, if you enjoyed the video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, bye bye.